Today we have Trent Ogden, who is the CFO of Ogden's Flooring. I have known many members of Trent's family for quite some time, and to have Trent here in the show to talk about his story is an absolute pleasure. So excited that you're here with us today, Trent.
Thanks, Chase. Appreciate it. This is my maiden voyage on a podcast. No one's ever interviewed me before for anything, so I hope it's interesting enough to make the cut.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. Yeah, I'm sure it will be. As I mentioned just before we started recording, I went to, for those who are listening, went to high school with Trent's son, and kind of got to know him, and then learn more about the Ogden family and just Ogden Flooring. And so I feel like there's a really good Utah story here, with what you guys have created with your brand and your company. And so absolutely excited to dive in and talk more about it. So. With that, Trent, usually first question I ask just to get to know you a little bit better and to understand some context is to talk about your upbringing and maybe a couple lessons learned there as in your early years and how that defined you.
Yeah, so I'm the second of 7 children. I was born in California, but we moved here when I was 5 years old and lived in Murray for a little bit, for 3 years, but then we moved to our house in Sandy, which would eventually bring us to that area that you grew up in too. So my dad was an entrepreneur, a real entrepreneur. If you want to talk about the entrepreneur in the family, that was him. And so he started this business when we got to Utah, maybe 18 months or so after we moved here. He started Ogden's Carpet Outlet was the name of it at that time. And then we moved to Sandy there, and I grew up fairly stereotypical Utah boy childhood, right? So I played football in high school, met my wife in high school. Didn't know it at the time, but we eventually got there. And then I started working at my dad's store when I was 12 years old. Just working in the warehouse, rolling remnants, doing all the heavy lifting that we have machines for now to do. But kind of cut my teeth there and just did basic stuff in that business. And I graduated in '87, and then I went on a mission right after that, and got back home, and I started my college at BYU because I had a partial scholarship there, and so I did started out in actually computer programming because that's what my brother did, and I took those physics classes at BYU. And they just wrecked me, and I was like, no, this isn't for me. I was good with numbers, but not that good. And so I kind of took a step back and switched to accounting. So I also, got married during that time, and my scholarship expired. I didn't get good enough grades to keep it. You have to get pretty good grades to do that. And at the time, this is back when BYU was the most expensive place to go to school in Utah. Now that's flipped.
Yeah, interesting.
So I transferred to the University of Utah and got an accounting degree. And then I turned right around and got an MBA also, like right after that, in the accelerated MBA program that they had. It's like a 1-year, 4-quarter thing year-round, and finished it quick because I knew I didn't want to stay in school forever. I wasn't, that great a student, and so that's kind of how I came to where I am today. We had 2 kids when I was in college, and it kind of, I had big hopes and dreams for, maybe public accounting, maybe getting into a firm and do public accounting. But when I graduated, you have to, in order to get a CPA license, you got to work for 2 years under a CPA.
Mm-hmm.
And I started out on that path, but I worked for a CPA for maybe 9 months or so, and found out, you know what, that's probably not for, that's not me.
Sure.
That's not what I want to do. I had grown up, in my home where my dad was an entrepreneur, and he owned his own business. He owned it all. And it just seemed to me like he had a lot of freedom to kind of leave town when he wanted to go on vacation, to take us, to do fun things. And whereas, I was looking around at other people that had, regular jobs, and you can't just pick up and go, right? So that was enticing to me to see, you know what, maybe just owning my own business or doing something in that realm would be more along the lines of what I'd like to do, because I liked to be with our family and to do more things with our family rather than just being so focused on, business and job and everything so much. So anyway, that's how I kind of started into my life.
Yeah, I love it. And you mentioned you met your wife in high school. I think Taylor did the same thing with his wife.
Yeah,
high school sweetheart. So is that an Ogden trend? Well, Lexi did Lexi? No, I don't think she did. But
well, she didn't marry someone that was her age. But the funny thing about our family, Chase, is every one of us have met and married someone from Alta High School.
Keep it in the true Hawks fly together.
That's right.
Shout out.
Hawks fly together.
That's right. That's great.
So my wife and I, she actually moved into my neighborhood just a few streets down when I was a junior in high school and she was a sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't start dating right away because my best friend in our neighborhood there in our ward, he kind of claimed her,
Sure.
Because he was the first one to see her, I guess, and so that gave him the right to say, "Hey, I'm gonna go for this girl, so the rest of you stay away." Right? That's kind of how that worked, and so I honored that for a while, till I was kind of winding up my senior year, the last part of my senior year. I just caught wind that, hey, she might want to do something different, right? And so, so anyway, I went to my friend and asked him, said, "Hey, I'd like to, take out Tammy," and it turned out that was my first, what would you say, aggressive move, if you will, for a guy that's not very aggressive. I'm more of an introverted type of a person, or always have been, and so that was turned out to be the best decision though that I've ever made, which I'll talk about a little bit.
Yeah,
I think in the future. But anyway, so all of our when you think about that, so we ended up getting married, but then every one of our kids has married someone from Alta High School. It's almost incestuous, a little bit.
I love it.
That we keep it that close. But I don't know what it is. I think part of it is, if we can go into a little bit about relationships.
Of course, let's talk, yeah.
I think what it is that you grow up with, when you grow up with people and you know what they're like in their natural element, and you know their families, you know what they're all about, you kind of grow a comfort level there. Whereas when you maybe go to college and you just meet someone there, like you don't know what their background is like, really. Right? And they can hide a lot of stuff that way, and where you couldn't do that in high school so much.
Right.
And so, I don't know, just all of our kids seemed more comfortable with that approach. And so, we kept it all there. My youngest may, buck that trend. I don't know, but
how old is
my youngest one? Is 17.
17.
She's the only one left. So I have 4 girls and 1 boy, Taylor. And my 4 oldest kids are all married now. 3 of them have children of their own, so I'm a grandpa already.
Nice.
And doing that, and so we have 1 more left at home, and in a year or so we're going to be empty nesters.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
We're winding down that part of our
stages of life.
Our life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's interesting, because I think a lot of times parents naturally it's like you see a high school relationship and it's like kind of roll your eyes like, oh, you guys will get over it.
Right.
But it goes to show, and I dated whatever in high school, but there are, to your point, I think in Utah and Alta, there are kind of like families that you know their background, their history.
Right.
And there's kind of that synergy and connectivity. So that's cool. I think that's awesome to be able to see that through. And then the other thing you mentioned, so you studied accounting. I did it as well.
Oh, okay.
So at BYU, I did the accounting program, and similar to you, I quickly realized that the Big Four, the typical route was not going to be the cup of tea that
back then it was the Big Six, but
that's
anyway.
right. Yeah, they consolidated. So I had a similar experience, and I'm excited to hear the rest of your story, because it took a little bit longer for me to realize that. I knew I didn't want to do accounting, but I didn't know I wanted to do anything entrepreneurial or stand on my own 2 feet. I went out and took a very corporate job at JP Morgan. And went out there and worked for several years, and then kind of transitioned to another similar corporate type job, both in real estate, but not very entrepreneurial, just kind of, doing other stuff. So yeah, I'd love to hear you keep going, Trent, kind of what happened after you graduated and where you ended up.
Yeah. So when when I was in school, in college, I needed a job, right? So I really was, while I was at University of Utah, I was working for my dad, and because I was doing an accounting degree, I was just talking to Dad about his business and stuff, and he really needed someone, a bookkeeper / accountant. I mean, he had a bookkeeper that was good, but he needed, that next step, because my dad's process of doing business was very shoot from the hip. Okay, he's a great marketing mind, and knew how to market and get customers to come in the door, but he didn't know how to, how once the money did come in, how to effectively save and spend it on certain things that would help grow the business or help you be more solid financially. And so he was just kind of, he would run his business, I used to say, from his bank account.
Yeah.
If he had money, he'd go spend it. If he didn't have money, then he wouldn't. But when he got money in his bank account, he usually spent it on something, right? So that he never really did have he didn't build up a savings.
Got it.
Okay. So the business was always a little bit precarious, and he always felt that. Now, he had a dad that had some money, and so sometimes he would go get loans from him, and that kind of helped him through some of those tough times. But when I looked at it, I was like, we should run this business differently. We should save money when it's good, in the good times. And we had gone through a couple of recessions already by then. He had one in the early 80s that was really bad. Lost some real estate on that one. And the early 90s had a little bit of one, and it came around to the kind of the mid 90s. That's kind of when I was going through college.
Okay.
And I could see that he needed help, and I was doing accounting, and I was doing these case studies in school and kind of learning, what do businesses do? How do businesses run? And I could see that we weren't running our business the way that others did, the people that were successful. And so I said, Dad, let me come in and, help you with the accounting. And I need a job while I'm going to school, and it's a flexible job, which is cool, right? I needed that so I could get my class schedule around, moved around and everything that I needed. So it was a good fit. And, none of my other siblings really stayed in the business in the, Ogden's Carpet Outlet at the time. And they kind of all went and did their own things. And I'm kind of the only one that really went back into the business after school and worked there in a meaningful way. And, and I started to, learn some things. And it was about this same time. I think I graduated in 95, 96.
Okay.
And it was that year, 1995, when my dad, he sold all of his stores, his existing locations. He had 7 locations at the time throughout Utah, retail floor covering locations. And he sold all of those to the managers that were managing those stores, and he sold them as a franchise.
Okay.
So they were all company-owned stores, and he said, I'm not making much money here. I don't know how to make much money. And so he said, I'm going to let all of these individuals manage their own, ownership business. And so he put these 7 people into ownership for themselves, which was an empowering thing for them. Mm-hmm. And I think a good thing for my dad. So it took a lot of stress off him of managing all of these businesses with not very good software, and really shooting from the hip and not knowing where he was at. And so he franchised all these out, and so I helped him with the franchise or business, right? So what he would do is he would advertise for all of these stores, bring people in the door, take a little bit of, off the top, a franchise fee. Sure. Or a royalty fee. Yep. And then they would just operate and run their own business, right? Yeah. And it worked pretty well. It was a good move, I think, for him because he couldn't manage all of these things, especially with the software. And the software is a big reason why, coming up, what happened a little bit later. So in about 1999, we had this kind of big, cumbersome DOS system that was operating all of our stores. Mm-hmm. And we because the other employees knew that system relatively well, at least the front end of it, they implemented that same software in all of their stores. But it was really hard for them to learn, especially the back end, the accounting parts and stuff. It was just almost an impossible thing. And so all of our franchisees now, we needed to help them to operate their businesses better. And so in 1999, my dad says, can't we, he invited my brother, Chad, who was a computer engineer. He said, come to floor covering market with us and find a piece of software or some software that will be able to manage all of these individual smallish stores, right? Mm-hmm. Rather than this big thing that we used to have. And he went and looked at those for several years. He looked at what was available in the market. Like Windows was, a thing then, and he was looking for a Windows program that would be easy to use, point and click type of stuff rather than menu driven. I don't know if you've ever worked in DOS before, but you would be too young for that. But anyway, so we used that as a springboard. He said, he looked at all of the possibilities in our industry and floor covering, and it's not just floor covering, but any home furnishings industry where you go in and buy a product and then have it installed in your home is a little bit of a unique thing. Mm-hmm. And you need software that manages those types of jobs better and job costs, each job individually and so forth in an efficient way. Anyway, so there were some unique things about it, and there just wasn't any good options in the market. And so my dad said to Chad, "Hey, why don't you just program something, right? You're a programmer. You can, right." Yeah. He doesn't understand how to write programs, but he says, "You can just throw this together, right, in a few months." And, and so he stayed up in a hotel in Vegas, which is where the show was. He stayed up all night one night, and he wrote all of that, the kind of the framework and how, I don't know what programmers do, but you apparently back then you write it down on paper to kind of show to organize what, your screens would look like, how they would interact with each other and so forth. And he wrote it up all on paper that night, stayed up all night and did it, said, "You know what? I think this is what you guys need." And so then that kind of the rest is history. We said, okay, well, what is it going to take to do that? And at the time he was working with a high-tech company and, had been offered, I can't remember if it was $90,000, $100,000 a year. Mm-hmm. We said, well, we can pay you 30.
Yeah. What a deal.
Yeah. Can you come and work for a few years and develop this program for $30,000 a year? And he had some savings at the time, and he was transitioning between things and wasn't sure, what job he was going to take and what route he would go. He'd been offered back east in Boston, and he wasn't sure he really wanted to pack up and move there and move his family there and everything. So he decided, okay, I'll do this for you. So we went to that's kind of how I became partners with him in this software business that would organize and manage and do the accounting for these floor covering stores. I was in charge of designing and giving to him kind of the specs that we needed for the accounting. Got it. Because I had just come through the accounting program, so I thought I knew what I was doing, right? Okay, yeah, we can do this. Yeah. So I did the accounting parts, and he did all of the rest of it, and then did the programming for it. And in 2000, we sold our first systems of that at the show that we had come from the year before.
That was like a carpet show or like an industry...
it's like the industry trade show.
Convention type thing.
Okay, got it. It's the main one where most floor covering dealers come to and most manufacturers and vendors come to. It's a big show in Vegas. And so we sold our first systems there. We did implement it in the Ogden's carpet outlet places first to kind of test it, make sure, work the bugs out and so forth before we took it other places. But we decided, you know what, this looks good. I think this will work. And it was starting to help our stores. And so we did. We took it there first. And then from the show, I think we sold 3 or 4 systems down there in that first year. And this was even before the accounting was done. So it was just the front end part. And then we added the accounting the next year. And it just kind of went from there, right? And so nowadays we have, 12 to 1,300, somewhere in that neighborhood of businesses that operate our software around the country.
That's amazing.
And so that's kind of what started us into, it was our Ogden's flooring or Ogden's carpet outlet background that both my brother and I had. We both worked in the warehouse, like I said before. Mm-hmm. We both were salespeople. And then I became, in the back end, the back office part, kind of knew all of the operations and what it took to operate this business. And so we both kind of came from that background. He was a programmer, I was an accountant. And it just kind of all came together that we had the skills necessary to be able to, design and program this operation. And so that's kind of since that time, it's been on and off, but since the mid 2000s, my day job has been software. Got it.
That's great. I didn't really appreciate that or know that. I mean, because Ogden's flooring and CFO, but it sounds like your main role has been on the software side.
It has.
And like you said, what a great sales pitch, or not even a pitch, but just the background that you and your brother had.
Yeah.
Growing up with your dad and the flooring and all the warehouse, and just kind of taking all your skill sets
yep.
and being able to sell that to people on the software. And wow, yeah, no, I didn't.
You didn't even know about that.
What's the name of
that company's
software?
Company's called Flooring Technologies.
Flooring Technologies.
And the software name is QFloors.
QFloors.
Yeah, we started out with QuickFloors, but we're quickly shut down by QuickBooks.
Okay.
With that name. So we shortened it to QFloors.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's kind of been, my main focus. But at the same time that I've been helping Chad with that, I do customer support. I have been doing customer support for a long time there, doing a lot of training. I would go out and do on-site trainings for floor covering stores. And through that experience, I also learned a lot from these other stores that I would go visit and implement our software into, and I would see, there's a good idea that we should implement in Ogden's carpet, right? And so I would bring those ideas back and share them with my uncles, where these are my mom's brothers, were actually the managers of what was the main franchise locations in Salt Lake. And then we had other franchise owners out, north and south. And so those guys really kind of took the bull by the horns when my dad franchised, and they managed those stores in Salt Lake, which were our main ones. And then I was still this acting CFO, so for Ogden's Carpet Outlet. So, they were all franchised at one time. I was the CFO of Ogden Enterprises, the franchisor. Then we had that recession hit in 2008. And I don't know if you were old enough to, let's see, you were 2011 in school, so probably didn't.
I do, so I remember that period. My dad's a news anchor. So he's been doing journalist stuff. So, but we were in Kentucky at that time, and he lost his job. And I was in high school, still pretty young, but definitely a tough period for a lot of people.
It was a long recession. It took a long time to get out of it. And it was that length that really damaged some of our franchisees. Mm-hmm. My dad and I were, as the franchisor, were kind of forced to come back and take back some of those franchise stores. So we brought them back under the Ogden's Carpet Outlet corporate umbrella.
Yeah.
We used the same people to manage, but we got to infuse some cash into it, get it back on its feet, use the same guys to really help us manage it. And those guys were my uncles, who were my mom's brothers. And they had been working with my dad from the beginning, almost from the 70s. And so they knew everything there was to know about, floor covering stores, how to buy, how to sell it, how to display it, how to account for it, all of those things. And I became kind of the CFO of that we resurrected our Ogden's Carpet Outlet. We went through a brand name change during that recession too. That same recession, we changed it from Ogden's Carpet Outlet to Ogden's Flooring and Design, which is the name that it currently has. Mm-hmm. And that's been a good move for us, I think. Ultimately, after a few years, it's really hard to do a brand name change in business. And, the big one that is doing it right now would have been Facebook, right? Going to Meta, that type of thing. So, for a long time, when I saw Meta, I'm like, who's that? And so it is hard to do that. But we were able to get through that and kind of change our reputation from a, stack it deep, sell it cheap, kind of a model of an outlet type store to more of a design center. Mm. And that's helped us get a different kind of clientele, different kind of jobs, bigger jobs usually. And it's really helped our profitability a lot to do that.
That's great.
So anyway, that we did that during that recession too. so this whole time I'm still kind of doing budgets. I'm doing financial statements for the carpet stores, but still doing my day job with the software, where I'm the CFO of that company too.
Yeah.
And the head trainer and so forth. And so I was, it was a busy time to get through that. And that recession really made things tenuous for us. In both things, because we didn't sell a lot of software either. I mean, that recession hit everybody around the country. So think of other floor covering stores around the country. They were in the same situation we were in.
Yeah.
Right? And so we didn't sell a lot of software. We hunkered down. We had to let a few people go from our software business. And we, Chad and me and a few others, did everything. We did all of the training. We did all the phone support. We run a call center. So we were answering phones,
wow.
and, from just incoming calls and doing everything from the ground up to kind of get through that period. And so since that time, both of those businesses, though, have kind of steadily grown, and we've been able to, build up some cash reserves in both of them that have really kind of changed our mentality and our anxiety, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody that has a business, when things are slow, you get anxious, you get nervous, you get stressed. And if you don't have any savings to fall back on, things get really, really tenuous. And so we were able to, put some money in the bank and build up our reserves and so forth through the 2000s. What is it? Yeah. Sorry, through the 2010s. And now I'm into that decade. And since that time, it was a really good decade, 2010s, and until we came up to this kind of self-inflicted slowdown that we're having right now. And, we're off 30% right now. So
got it.
But I'm not too worried about it, because the economy always comes back,
Yep.
We have downturns, but we always have things when it comes back. We've got a really, strong economy, despite what, the stupid stuff that government does. Business usually finds a way to move around all of those things and to continue to grow and to provide the products and services that the economy demands. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that's great. So are you still doing the franchise model? You brought some back in house. What does it look like now?
So what it looks like now, so Ogden's Carpet Outlet, or Ogden's, our franchisor business name is Ogden Enterprises. Okay. So that's the franchisor. There are 8 what we call company-owned stores, because I also own a piece of Ogden Enterprises. By the way, I'm not a sole owner of any of these things. I'm not really a fan of being a sole owner of anything. One reason is because I'm not a CEO type person, a visionary person. I need somebody to kind of provide that for me. I'm more of the, in the background, hey, let me provide you all the information you need to make good decisions, right? That's what a traditional CFO does, right?
Right.
And that's what I've gone into that role. My brother in the software business is our CEO, and my uncles that I was talking about earlier are the managers of Ogden's Carpet Outlet. And we are partners in these businesses. We each have some ownership, so I have some in each of these businesses, but I'm not a sole owner of any one of them. I kind of think that the reason I've done this, well, first of all, it's my temperament to be that way, to not have to be the king of the world, or the sole, the head cheese or whatever. So that's kind of how I am and how I was wired. And so just to be a part of something like that. Plus, I think you need diversity in your management team. Now, not just management team, but ownership team. Because you need people that are invested in this to each come with what, their ideas and their things. And we butt heads sometimes and we, hash things out. But usually it comes to a better solution and a better, operation when you do that, when you go through those pains of, hitting your ideas up against someone else,
right,
and see how they stack up, right, and then, implementing those plans, and you learn a lot that way. And so I've had great partners. It's one of the things that I really recommend that, entrepreneurs out there, if you're, for every entrepreneur, there's 99 people that work for those entrepreneurs and that support them and are fulfilling those supporting roles. And you need good people around you as peers and also working under you to be able to, create a good organization. And I think any successful CEO knows that, right? Because if they didn't, they wouldn't be around very long. And so that's one of the things that I would recommend to, some of the people. So you, back to your question, you were asking me about how that went. So I, with the carpet stores, we own 8 company-owned stores now that are back in the Ogden's Carpet Outlet corporate umbrella.
Got it.
And we have 5 other independently owned franchise stores. Okay, so that's kind of the makeup right now. We have, now my uncles are kind of getting older, so they're wanting to retire here pretty quick. And so we've hired a new younger guys in his 30s to kind of be the general manager partner of Ogden's Carpet Outlet to manage these 8 stores and to expand it. And he has vision and drive and younger age and everything, right? A little bit of risk in him, risk averse, that he can see things and say, hey, let's go do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And he's kind of helped us expand our visions where we were kind of had tunnel vision before. And he's helped us get to grow the business a lot, especially in his last little bit. And so we went from we had 4 company-owned stores just 3 years ago. Now we have the 8.
Oh, great.
And so we're on a path to add 1 or 2 new franchise locations each year. It's kind of our plan to really cover Utah. We have stores from north to south, but we don't have the right density of stores.
Got it.
We need to get more locations in some of our higher populated areas, and that's our plan, is to make that.
It's great. So then the plan is more so to grow the franchise component rather than the corporate, or you kind of do both?
We're doing both. We're actually trying to do both.
What's more favorable when you think about it as more in the CFO, CEO type role, are you like, I'd rather do a franchise store or I'd rather do a corporate owned store? I'm sure there's pros and cons, but
I kind of have selfish reasons for wanting to have more corporate owned stores because I have more ownership there.
Sure.
That benefits me more. So it's, but I like the idea of, we've got a good model in our corporate owned stores that allows us to add new locations and franchise without a lot of, difficulty. And we have some money in the bank to be able to do it. So that always helps too. You got to have some cash. So it's easy for us to go out and open a location, as long as, here's the kicker though, we've got to have good managers. You have to have good managers and salespeople. And during this time where the labor market has been so tight, it's been difficult to find good people.
I bet.
Right? And and the good people you do find, you can't pay them enough sometimes. If they're a really good manager or they're a really, really good salesperson, they're going to go where, they can make more money. And so sometimes we train people and then they leave. And sometimes, you just can't find them. You can't hire them. And so if we can't find and hire, and they need to be in our system for at least a few months, maybe 6 months before they can actually be a manager. And so we're trying to cultivate that right now, to find the people to be able to expand as fast as we would like to expand and think we can expand. So we don't have really problems with having the money to expand. It's finding the people, the right people to do it. Because if you don't have the right people, you're not going to be successful in your business.
Got it. So for somebody wanting to do an Ogden's Flooring and Design franchise, what does that process look like? Because I did a Crumble Cookies franchise.
Oh, you did?
Out in
Okay.
Georgia.
All right.
And to get into a store with Crumble, I don't know what it is now, but back then it was like $400,000 to build it. Well, all in, I think, including the franchise fee, the cost to build it out, the inventory, it was like $400,000 to $500,000. And so, but anyway, what's that look like for somebody coming into Ogden?
It's not that much.
Okay.
Not as much as
that
Crumble.
Actually is surprising because you guys are selling a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So you can get into a franchise with us at $50,000.
Wow.
Is the initial franchise fee going in. And then it takes, depending on your space and what store location you're at and so forth, between $100,000 to $150,000 to, build out, the tenant improvements, to get your showroom in place, to have a warehouse if you need one to house your stuff. The corporate store actually is making that easier because we do have a bigger central warehouse where we can warehouse for our franchisees that are, within reasonable distance. And so we do that with $50,000 down is what it costs you, and maybe $100,000 $150,000 with the other things going in. And then we give you all of the training that you need. We give you the software. Of course, we do have a good software source
That's right.
that we can plug in, and we teach you how to operate that software efficiently so that your business is really easy to manage and you know exactly where you're at. So for those people that follow the kind of the model that we have, they're very successful at going into it if they have the people. And the drive to do it, they can be very successful in our franchise. So
that's awesome. And when someone's looking at a location, whether corporate or franchise, are you guys leasing space? How much do you need, or are you buying land and building a building?
Yeah, it's a good question. That most of our people go in leasing. Okay, because they don't have their own building. But after our franchisees have been in business for a while, nearly all of them buy real estate.
Sure.
And put their store in their own place. In fact, when I look at and think about all of the franchisees that are not corporate owned, they all own their buildings.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they've used the floor covering business and the money generated from that to now invest in real estate.
That's great.
Okay. And now we can't go as fast as we want to go in our corporate owned things, adding 1 or 2 locations a year by buying everything. It's just impossible to do that, especially in the big cities. It's hard to find just individual places that you can buy without buying maybe a whole strip mall, and we don't have the money and stuff for that. So we can't go, as fast as we want to or would like to with real estate, but we do. That's one of the things that I have felt like is important, is that make sure you buy at least some of your real estate as you build your business, and use some of the profits from that business to get some real estate, because it's a very stable asset, and it's always increasing over any 5-year or 10-year period. I think in the history of our country, sure, commercial real estate has always gone up,
Yep.
And so, that's been a good thing for us. I like the idea of owning, as much real estate as possible, as much as you can get. This recent huge increase though in prices, and now with interest rates going up, banks they're not loaning stuff to people very quickly anymore. And, the regional bank crisis that we're going through is really, put some people on their heels, and the banks are very skittish right now, and they're not very willing to just open things up to you. So it's hard to get loans. It's hard to even find the places to go, especially in some of the bigger cities. There's nothing available. You're in the industrial market. What's available in the south end of Salt Lake Valley?
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to get something there for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, through all of these years, back when my dad took it over, we bought our Orem building from the franchisee that left. And so we did buy that showroom, okay? Since then, we've also bought a warehouse in Orem because it was available and it was a good price, and so we took it. So we have a warehouse, we have a showroom in Orem, and then we have, in our software business, we bought our little office building that we're doing business out of with the software. So I've kind of got three different, and again, I'm part owners in all of those. I don't own any of that myself, right? It's all my partners. Hey, our business has some money. Let's all invest in this piece of property here and all become real estate guys too, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we've done. And so we have an office building, a warehouse, and a showroom right now in our little real estate umbrella, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish it was an empire.
Yeah.
But
that's smart. Yeah.
We're growing, slowly, but stable, and, slow but steady has kind of been the way that I've done things. Okay. It's also though, one of the regrets that I have, and you'd asked before, maybe some mistakes. What mistakes have I made, and what have I done wrong, or what failures have I had? One of the failures is probably that I didn't go work for someone else in coming out of school or early on in my career. You said, hey, I worked for, these big corporations. Well, good for you.
Sure.
I would say. I think it's, it might not be your favorite thing to do, but I think you can learn a lot from getting outside of your comfort zone, getting outside of your family, and learning how do other people really operate, and what are the ins and outs, the guts of those things, and how do they manage people? What do they offer them as incentives? What is their pay structure? How do they handle all those things? Are things that were foreign to me, right?
Yeah.
Going into this, and we learned through hard knocks how to, do those things. And so I really think one of the things I failed at is not going out. And my dad actually gave me that advice, but I didn't take it. I mean, I started with the public accounting thing, but then I was like, no, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Anyway, I should have gone and worked for somebody and really cut my teeth that way. And then, I could have maybe come back and been a bigger help and more beneficial to our floor covering stores and the software. So
that's great advice, anyway. Trent. I think a lot of times people want to fast track it, get rich quick. I don't need to go work for somebody else, and I get that, right? Because an entrepreneur naturally, I think, just wants kind of control and wants to do their own thing, and so it's that balance of I really do think experience matters, and it can accelerate your path of growth so much more when you take a few years and go learn on someone else's dime and make some of those mistakes and learn the ins and outs of an industry, and then take that skill set and go do your own thing, because it can save you years. I mean, it could save you, a lot of time and energy when you're just, I mean, even though so I did go work for 5-6 years and quit my job, and now we're starting our own real estate company, but there is still so much, there's always going to be unknowns and throwing darts at the board and trying to get them to stick and figuring it out. But I think it has saved us a lot of time on our business that both of us spent, 5-6 years working in the industry, kind of getting to know some things. So I think that's
what I meant. Yeah.
Great advice.
And I think I think you did it right. You know, you may look back and regret some of it, but I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, so you're looking to grow 1 or 2 stores a year. Do you guys want to get out of Utah, expand like nationally or regionally at some point?
Regionally, probably.
Yeah,
is in the short term. We have at least 10 more locations in Utah.
Okay.
So we got 5 to 7 years.
Sure.
That we got to just stick our heads down, find the people. Again, that's the key to it. Mm-hmm. Let's find the people, and then let's build this out in Utah. And we don't care if it's company owned or franchise. From my personal perspective, I'd rather have a company owned, but we're looking all the time for new franchisees. And, I think once we do Utah, I think this younger guy, his name's Kyle Baxter, that we hired, mm-hmm. he may want to go regional with it and take it further than that. But, by that time, I probably hope to be doing something else by then. So
yeah. Well, I was going to ask Trent. So outside of before we do that, with QFloor,
yes,
the tech side,
yeah,
you've had that going for 20 plus years now. What's the plan with that? I mean, it sounds like a separate business. You're integrated with Ogden's, obviously, but is there a plan to just continue to grow that, or to sell it, or what are your thoughts there?
It's a good question. We have. Between me and my brother, we get maybe 3 emails a week from investors, from VCs, private equity, mm-hmm. other companies looking to buy our software business.
Got it.
Okay. Because it's an ERP business. It manages the whole business, and it has the ability now to hook in APIs from other softwares that you can connect to really make it a powerful thing. But it becomes the guts of a business, right? Our software does. And so we have designed this to be able to, expand it that way with other software companies hooking into our software. And we plan on, we have all these companies coming to us and offering us, say, hey, let us come and buy your business, mm-hmm. and especially through this last period where there was all of that, I think they were called specs, where they had all of this money that people put into a fund that was tasked with going out and finding businesses to buy, right? And they would, so they would pre-fund it and give them kind of a time bomb. Hey, you've got to buy something within a certain amount of time. And all of these things, I think that's what, created all of this stuff. Plus the free money from the government, I think just gave everybody so much cash out there. They're like, we got to do so. We got to employ it somehow, mm-hmm. right? And get it out there in the market. And so there was so much money, and there's still quite a bit of people that are asking us, and we've entertained a few people, and gone down the road of sharing information with them, and here's where we are. And the right offer just hasn't come yet that we feel like it's worth. People are, of course, they only offer you what your business is worth today. Mm-hmm. They don't offer you what you think it will be worth right. 3 years from now, right? Yep. And so we've, for the time being, we've kind of, not done that. We're growing 20+% per year in this business, and we have plans to go faster there, to have, we're going to have a lot of it. Most of it's going to be subscription revenue, and, a subscription revenue with software is a really valuable thing, and we think that we can push that, up into, tens of millions of dollars of value. So that's kind of what our goal is within the next few years to do that.
That's great. Well, I'm sure you will. It sounds like an incredible product that you guys have developed and continue to refine over the years. So I love it. Well, it's great. And then outside of Ogden's Flooring and QFloor, are you doing any other business ventures? You mentioned the real estate side, but is there anything else you're doing?
I was just looking this year. I've got 8 K1s that I put into my into my personal tax return, right? So 3 of those are the 3 real estate things. Got Ogden's Carpet Outlet, Ogden Enterprises, which is the franchisor for all of the Ogden's flooring and designs. And then we have Flooring Technologies. And then a couple other smaller things that to manage, like our life insurance and different things like that. But so those are my entities, right? And that's really what I would recommend to people is have ownership in something. Even if you're not the main guy, get some ownership in something, because then you become invested in it. You get all of this. You have other partners and people that bring energy and ideas to it. They build value with you, and the spin-off of the distributions that you get from those entities is really has opened my eyes to what is possible when you have ownership in businesses that are solid and successful and doing what they do.
Yeah, love it. That's great advice, Trent. And outside of the businesses, it sounds like most of your capital is either going back into the business or growing. Are you investing outside of that, stocks or real estate or otherwise,
right,
or most of the business?
So our, maybe just to give people a little insight to what I at least came up with as a CFO, I recommended to all of our partners in all of our businesses and they're all pass-through entities, okay? So they're some S corporations, some LLCs. I would say to them, hey, let's distribute 50% of our profits, okay? And let's keep the other 50% in the business, all right, to reinvest in it and so forth. And that model has worked really well for us. It's not allowed us to go as fast maybe as we wanted to, but it has given us a good return individually, but kept enough money in the business that we can build up the resources that we need to, if a real estate deal comes, hey, let's grab that. You have the ability to go and get something quick if you've got the reserves to do that. And it's been a successful model for us to do that. So, now most of the 50% distribution that you give to partners is they have to pay tax on that, but they have to pay tax on the 100% of profit, right? If you know how those, so you gotta, the owners have to pay 100% of the tax on, they have to pay tax on 100% of the profit, but we're only giving them 50% of it. So, think of it, someone's in a 35% tax bracket, maybe 40% tax bracket. Most of the money that we distribute to them goes to taxes. Sure. Okay. So they're not building a lot of personal wealth, but we're keeping that wealth within the business so that we can grow it and make it so when you say reinvest in the business, that's what been our model, right? We reinvest that way. In the software business, the other thing we've done, we're actually losing money by retooling. We're actually reprogramming our product to make it a web-based product, so you can operate it in a web browser.
Got it.
Okay.
Smart.
So the one that we did, obviously 4 years ago, that was an installed program and on a site, and it was in a Windows environment. This is going to be running in a browser, and that one takes a lot of money to do the development on that. So we're actually going in the hole to try to get this thing pushed out, and we just launched the first version of that, actually the second version of that just a few weeks ago, and got everybody going on that. And so we're excited about the possibilities of that. And so to tell you, we're reinvesting heavily in the software and keeping it in the business and trying to make that push to make it worth, so much more here in a few years. And so that's what we're trying to do.
No, I love it. And sometimes it's probably the temptation is like, let's take all this money out now and go buy a boat and do the thing. Right. But like the long-term view is let's continue to reinvest in the business and create long-term value and then potentially an exit or future growth or what have you. And so I think you're absolutely looking at it the right way. Well, we'll wrap up here, Trent. Just a couple last questions that I wanted to ask you. When you think about, you've touched on some great advice so far, but when you think about business or entrepreneurship or starting something on your own, what would be kind of a piece of advice you'd have for somebody looking to do something on their own or a business?
Yeah. So one of the things that really helps, and I've talked about this throughout, though, is you've got to develop the skill of delayed gratification. So, we just hit on that thing right there, right? Don't take out all of the profits from your business as you make them, right? Keep some in there. Keep some for a rainy day. Keep some for future investment. Keep some to take advantage of potential opportunities that will come down the road that you don't even know about, might not even be in your business plan, right? So delay your gratification. Okay, that's something. Have enough cash in savings before you jump into business. Okay, don't spend every dime to buy the business. Right? If you had $400,000 to go buy a crumble franchise, you better have $600,000 to do that. Okay, because your operations in the first few months, maybe years, are not going to be profitable right off the bat, right? And so you're going to need some more there. So have enough money for a rainy day. Murphy's Law applies to all young businesses. If something's going to go wrong, it probably will, right? And so you got to keep that in mind. And then partner with the right people is one thing I would say. Choose your partners wisely. Choose honest people but choose the people that are good at the things you're not good at, right? Though that's a critical thing that I think you have to do in a successful business is get people around you with skill sets that are different from yours. And then I think you're going to be successful in business. So
that's great. Yeah, I love that so much. I think partnering, you touched on it earlier and just now again, I think that's so critical to the success of a business. And even if it's not like a direct partnership, maybe it's a mentor or somebody in the industry who's got your back, or they're on a board seat. I see a lot of groups do that where they'll have somebody who's older, been around, and they'll just put them on their board. And say, hey, we'll give you, X% of the company, or we'll pay you X, something to make them happy or willing to help, but just to help accelerate. Because when you're just throwing yourself in the deep end, trying to figure it out yourself, it's so hard. And even with some experience under your belt, we're figuring out too. It's like, man, and that's part of this podcast is just sitting down with, successful individuals who've done it before and understanding, their mindset, how they've done it. And so anyway, I love that advice, Trent. The last question I have for you, just when you back up and you think about life and business and just what we're doing here on planet Earth, I guess, how do you define like a life well lived or success? Yeah.
So, success in its basic terms is having a plan and then meeting that plan, right? And in my life, money hasn't been the object of it. It's a means to an end. And the end for me has been more family-oriented things, more religion. I'm a very religious guy, and so I want to be very committed there and flexible there. And so when I look at my future, my near future, that's one of the things that I wanted to say is my wife didn't ever have a chance, to go on a mission like I did. And all of our kids have gone on missions, and all of the in-laws, son-in-laws, and the only one that hasn't yet hasn't gone on a mission is Taylor's wife, because he married her too quick, right? So he should have given her some time. But anyway, she kind of feels this void of, hey, I didn't ever get a chance to do that. And so we're not getting any younger, and her health is somewhat, she has a bad back problem. So we don't want to go too long before I give her the opportunity to go on a mission. And so we're going to do that. And in order to do that, I've got to get my businesses in a situation where either I sell some of them or part of them, or at least get someone in there trained that can replace me, so that, I have enough, and I think I have enough, profits coming off of them that I can do it without selling, but we'll see. Right now I don't, because the economy is horrible. And so there's always that, right? Then in the back of my mind, well, what'll happen if I don't get any money out of it? But anyway, I want to be able to give her that opportunity in the near future rather than the late future. And so that's why I'm looking to try to, do something in the next few years to put myself in a situation where we can do that. So that's what I think would define success, is to be able to create that opportunity for my wife. So
love it. Well, that's great, Trent. Thank you so much for sharing that and for being here and talking about your story, your background, and sharing some incredible insights with us today. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you and sitting down here. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chase. Appreciate it.